Hi, everybody. I'm Annie with the Right Review, and I'm here with Nola Nash. Oh my gosh, of the Second Line Show, and all of these beautiful soul sisters who wrote an amazing Christmas series that everybody needs to get now. The first book is free, and then the rest are not expensive at all, and they're very well worth it, even if they were. So you all have to join in, learn about the stories, and let's all get jolly and let's start talking about the holiday book that you need to have this holiday season. So my first question, and whoever wants to grab it can grab it. I want to know what first brought this whole idea to fruition. Huh?
Tess?
Take it away, Tess. Yeah.
Well, we were all at a conference together last September, back when we could still see each other in person, the good old days. And we were just sitting around, kind of basically chatting about how similar we wrote, kind of similar genre that we all write in, and kind of bonding about that, because it's a little bit of a niche in that we really skirt that line between romance and women's fiction. So we were all kind of talking about that, and then one of us had the idea of, well, could we write a series together, and and it just sort of rippled from there. Yeah.
Wow. And it rippled so fast. If it was just September of last year, right? And so beautifully.
That's crazy. Because
you really can't tell that. You can tell there's different voices, but not so monumentally different that the stories take on a new life, because they don't. They feel like this beautiful Little Women's breath of fresh air. Because I get the total Little Women feel for me, especially every time like they go up to the front door or whatever, or they're outside. I just feel like, oh, Little Women, I'm in love with these stories, all of them. And I don't know how you all live apart and kept everything so fluid and correct. So that was very interesting. But let's start with telling everybody about Christmas Sisters and how, because that's the story that everyone can grab for free and fall in love with it. And before you know it, you're going to have read them all within a week for sure. And all of these were rolled out in October, which was pretty cool, like 1 week after the next.
Sorry.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So tell us, who wants to tell us about Christmas Sisters?
I'll go. Christmas Sisters starts with Maddie Kirby, and she is a woman who has just gone through just an unimaginable tragedy. She's lost her husband and her daughter in an accident 8 months earlier, and it was something that she wasn't sure she was going to be able to survive. And in order to survive that, she basically fueled everything she had into helping others, and kind of like, rather than cave in on herself and give up, she decided that the only way her heart was going to survive is if she gave it to someone else. So there was a student at her school. She is a guidance counselor at a middle school, and there was a student in her school she was particularly interested in, and kind of like really felt for this young girl, Stevie, who had been basically abandoned by her mom, and then was in the foster care system, but the system is so broken that it really hadn't helped her that much. And so Maddie had made a decision to take on Stevie and invite her into her home for Christmas and to live as long as she could, not knowing what her mother was going to come back. And through a series of fortunate circumstances, Maddie ended up with 4 girls for Christmas. So Christmas Sisters kind of opens with Maddie's story and how she decided to take in these girls and how that happened. And then each of those young girls tells their own story. Each author has a different character. I write Maddie, Ev Bishop writes Stevie, Tess Thompson writes Alyssa, Tammy Grace writes Joe, and Judith Keim writes Haley. And each of those authors takes a section in Christmas Sisters and writes from their character's point of view of what that first Christmas was like. So it's kind of an introduction to the family, and you kind of get to meet the family and come together with them as they meet each other and come together.
Now, I do want to say that as you're reading it, so I write the first review and I'm like, oh yeah. So Haley, like, you know, she's definitely my favorite character. You know, like, and then it was like, oh no. It's Joe. Joe's my favorite character. And then, like, you know, and then it just kept snowballing. Each character was always my favorite character. And it's just because every character was just so full and lovable, right?
Oh.
Everyone. But, and then we get introduced to the mother. So I'd like to, so you can get Christmas Sisters for free. Everyone knows I've been advertising like where you can get all of these books, every link, every single link. We will be putting that up again. But so let's go to, and thank you for Violet for that. I was so neglectful. I didn't introduce everybody. So we have author Violet Howe here. Did I pronounce your name right?
Yes.
Okay. And Tammy Grace and Judith Keim, Tess Thompson, and Ev Bishop. Did I pronounce that right?
You did.
Now, I haven't met Violet. I have never met Tess, and I've never met Ev. So this is very exciting for me. And of course, we have Nola Nash, who I definitely know I introduced. So this is all these authors over here and me. I'm very excited. It's exciting for me. I don't know what to do with myself. So, and I couldn't wait to have the Soul Sisters on, because you guys are like Soul Sisters, right? So we're going to totally expect this every year. Or something for Valentine's Day. I don't know. But because you guys do it so well. How did you, before we move on from Christmas Sisters, how did you decide who was going to get which sister?
Well, it's actually, I'll jump in for this one. It was sort of funny because that's a really popular question, and we had absolutely no problem, or so we thought, figuring out whose sister was going to be who. I immediately, as soon as the idea was kind of put to the group, I was like, oh my goodness, well, I get a chef. I thought the chef was a love interest. At that point, I met Stevie in my head, but I didn't realize she was also a chef. And everybody quickly was like, and I'm the mom. Immediately was like, I'm the youngest. And we thought it was all divvied up. And then months into it, we found out that Tammy Grace had actually wanted the mom, but she's the older sister. You know, it worked out perfectly well, though, because she writes Joe. And Annie, when you mentioned that there's something about the series that just makes you think of Little Women, and it conjures up those same happy, feel-good.
Exact same feelings.
That is such an inadvertent word of praise. And you're not the first person, but Joe, Tammy's character, is named as sort of an honor or tribute to Joe in Little Women. And
I love that.
So whenever, like, every compliment is nice, but there's some that really make your heart go, oh yeah, as an author. So I know that's a really special one. We love that comparison.
Oh, that's wonderful. But it really does make you feel like that, because you also have there's boys, men. we jumped 15 years, so there's men. Yeah. And then there's a story about the mother, which I never expected, because I thought it was just going to be about the sisters. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute, I love the mama too. You know, it was like, and even like she has a love story. So it's very, and that's the beauty of it, though, is that you never get bored.
Oh, cool.
Whoever's book you pick up, you're never bored. Nice. So it's always just as exciting as the last, if not more. It's wonderful. So you're welcome. So let's move on to book 2. Christmas Kiss. Oh, Judy's not here. Okay, somebody.
She's coming back. There she is. Let's see if we can.
Judy.
Still no voice.
We're going to have to ask Judith yes or no questions.
All right. So, somebody's going to have to talk about Christmas Kisses because there's a rock star in there, okay? So somebody has to talk about Christmas Kisses for Judy. And, you know, there's a librarian. I love that there was a librarian in the book. That was why I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in love. She's a librarian. There's a rock star in it named Nick.
I love that it has
children's books, and he wants to do something with his music in regards to the children's books. There's like all this, a very, very interesting story going on that you just fall in love with. And you get to the end of these books and you're like, ugh, I have to wait till Thursday of next week to get the next one. Like, are you serious? So like anybody watching this that hasn't read it, you don't have to wait. You can just get the set. So like that's the best part of it. You can get the set, you can get it as a gift for somebody, and they're gonna love it. It's all wonderful stuff. So so that's Christmas Kisses. If I don't know, does anybody have anything to say about Judy writing Christmas Kisses?
Well,
Judy, do you want to do charades for us? I mean, we can just see his first words.
Yeah,
Sounds
first
like.
it sounds like.
Oh, that kisses. Yeah, there was some kissing going on. It's a wonderful one. You know, anything that Judy writes is going to be a wonderful, wonderful story. I mean, you know that. You know that the second it's on the shelf that you know you have to get it. It's going to be a wonderful story, and it was written so well into the first story, of course, and then the third story came out so perfectly into it. But all of the sister stories, like when it comes out the 15 years later, they're all at this really cool place called Cedar Mountain Lodge, where everyone wants to go. Like Serena and I were, you know, she was at the Right Review. We were just like, oh yeah, I want to go to Cedar Mountain Lodge. And like, who do you want there? Do you want Robert or do you want Nick? You know, like that's how we would talk. You know, it was just so cool. Just such a cool place. And you know, there was dogs there. There had to be dogs there.
Of course.
Tammy is in the story.
There always has to be dogs.
Yeah, it always has to be dogs. I mean, it's just such wonderful, wonderful stories. So let's move on to and I love the names, and you guys will all be seeing the covers. Nola did some wonderful covers for this graphics. So Christmas Wishes is next, that Tammy L. Grace wrote, which had Joe, a puppy, and a lawyer. Joe was a lawyer. So let's talk about that, Tammy.
Thanks, Annie. Yes, Joe is, I took the oldest character because I really wanted the mom. So I thought the oldest sister would be something I could maybe handle.
Oh,
And,
you handled it very well.
So Joe is, she's kind of an old soul. She was born an old soul, I think. She was raised by her grandma. So she hung out with her grandma and her grandma's friends, and her grandma was a town librarian for a long time. So Joe spent a lot of time at the library, loves books, loves to study, quite the serious girl. And she grows up to be a lawyer, and she doesn't want to rely on anybody else ever again because she wants to make her own way and make her own money and have that security. So she is a very stable person and doesn't want to take any risks. But Finn is a gorgeous golden retriever that she meets at Cedar Mountain Lodge that first morning when she goes out on a walk. And Finn just nuzzles right up to her, and his owner is hollering for him, looking for him in the snow. And she says, oh, I've got Finn over here. And this handsome guy comes around the corner, and she looks at him for a minute, and he calls her a nickname that she hasn't heard since she was a little girl. And she realizes it's Luke, who she knew at the library when she spent a lot of time there with her grandma. And he's a little older than her, about 4 years older. but was always a really nice guy with a great family that lives there in Granite Ridge. And so then Jo is kind of stuck because she has some feelings for Luke that she never expected, and that's not in her plan. Her plan is to make money and contribute to her 401k and become a partner. And she lives in Chicago, and she's got lots of stuff going for her. So Luke kind of throws a wrench in her life, but it's a fun story about
Isn't it different?
reconnecting, you know.
It's such a fabulous story. I really, again, it's the same. Tammy's stories are always very, very wonderful, and you're gonna fall in love with them. And once again, it was like, oh, wait a minute, forget Haley, I'm in love with Jo. It was like Jo is my favorite character, and I just kept doing this every time. It was so crazy.
Awesome.
It was all, yeah, and I mean, even till the very end. So it was, oh my gosh. So the whole thing of it is, though, I want everyone to understand. We're going to tell everybody why they were together after 15 years. Is that, can we tell them that at the end? Why? Okay, but we don't want to tell them yet. So that was called Christmas Wishes. Now, Barbara Hensk just left a comment that your covers are beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Covers are perfect. Now, she's another author that kind of writes same as we all do,
Yep.
and she's a wonderful author as well. And so that's a great compliment coming from her. And I'm glad she's here. That's pretty cool. So then we have, and thank you, Tammy, for giving me another book that I couldn't put down.
And a dog. Gotta get a dog.
I think I have 3 dogs, but I think that's when Sullivan started his little whoop, 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 whoop. He does that now. I think he knows when I'm reading about another dog. I think he knows. So then we have Christmas Hope by Violet. Mama Claire.
Everybody like that.
What? My favorite character.
Well, Maddie, we already kind of mentioned in Christmas Sisters, you meet Maddie, who is the mom of these 4 sisters that comes together. But Maddie has a mama who has, it's kind of inspired her. And Claire is quite a hoot. I love writing books about older characters, and I love writing romances with older characters because there's not like an age limit cliff where we suddenly fall off that cliff and we stop feeling love and passion and all these other things. And so I really like writing the older characters, which was why I wanted to do the mom. I think it's a very interesting time in Maddie's life at this 15-year later point, because she's pretty much lived her entire life for her daughters. And now as her daughters are adults and they're all moving out on their own, and her mother has found a love interest and is kind of like, busy on her own. It's kind of a time period where Maddie has to look at her own life and decide if she's ready to take time for herself, because she's always been a person who put everyone else first and whose focus has been what everyone else needed. And now she's at this time period where everybody's kind of taking care of their own self, and she kind of has maybe time for herself. And so that's what this story is really about, is Maddie finding that space to be able to love herself and do things that are important for her. And Claire was actually based on a real life person.
Oh, really? Oh my God, I'm in love.
And Claire's escapades were based on things that happened to this real life person. And it's actually my best friend's mother. And she horrifies my best friend just as much as Maddie is often horrified. And so some of the things when Jan would tell me things that her mom had done and said, particularly if any of you have read the book, and I won't give it away, but if you've read the book, The Doctor's Office, when Jan was telling me this experience, I'm like, that has to go in a book. And so before I was willing to put this in a book, I told her, I'm like, we need to ask your mom, because her mother reads my books. And I'm like, I don't want to put this in a book. And your mother would be like, hello, that's my life. And so she called her mom, and she called me back and said, said she is overjoyed that you're putting it in a book, but she's upset that you didn't name the character after her. And is it too late to change the name of the character? So,
That's awesome.
yeah. So I had permission to use those stories, but yes, Claire is quite a hoot. I think that she gives us a lot of comic relief, but she also gives us a lot of wisdom too. And I think that Maddie is able to be the mother she is because of Claire. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's just, it's just so wonderful. All of these stories. Again, I thought we were always going to just sister stories. Not that that's not wonderful, but I just was in shock when like the whole story was about Claire, the mama. I said, oh my gosh. And she's just so awesome. And now you know why Maddie's so awesome and why she was so giving of herself. And one of the cool messages in this whole story is, I wrote it down. Family can be more than who we were born into.
Yep.
Right. Because she adopted her four foster children.
Right.
And that's such a beautiful thing. And these books really do touch your heart, which is what you want out of a Christmas book. You want them to touch your heart. And then you go, oh, wait, Tess Thompson's book's not out yet. Right? And Ev Bishop's book's not out yet. So you're like, I totally had forgotten that there were two more. So, because I had fallen sick, things had happened in between. So then I said, oh my gosh, I hadn't read the other two yet. So then we have the other two, and we meet. Who do we meet first? Stevie?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we meet Stevie. And so tell us about Stevie and that book.
Yeah, so Stevie, way back in the beginning, like Violet said, back when Maddie had realized that in order to, if she was going to survive at all, she needed to find someone to pour love into. And it was Stevie, who was a girl that she knew through her job as a school counselor, knew she was struggling. So that was my character, and I knew her right off the bat. And so she is, I think all of the girls are in various states of trauma when they come and they first meet with Maddie. But Stevie's a little bit different than the other ones in that she's not orphaned. She does have a mom who's still alive. And so there's that complex and really hurt-filled relationship that also she can't help but have hope for too, because she's a kid and you're hardwired to love your parents, right? And she couldn't have asked for a better mentor or mom of her heart than Maddie. But she's not optimistic. As grateful as she is when she gets to come for Christmas, she kind of looks at the other girls who she is enamored with and really likes, but is also doesn't think that they're going to like her. So that's nervous for her. But she also looks at them almost not with mean-hearted jealousy, but with like, oh, like they'll be able to stay with Maddie if they want to, but I won't be able to because I have a mom. And she'll end up coming back for me. And that's something that sort of is a complex issue for her for most of her life. I'm not going to tell a story. You know that she does end up getting to stay with Maddie. So she's 13 when you first meet her, and then she's 15 years later, so 28 when you meet her up at the lodge. And she's a chef, and it's a second chance romance. She meets up with her high school sweetheart, and some sparks and other things fly.
Other things fly. So that, I remembered meeting Stevie at the beginning. Of course, they're intermingled in all the books, but then you meet her again. You learn more about her story, and all of them. You're falling in, like you can tell from what I'm saying. You literally are falling in love with all of them. You're falling in love with their stories, as Ev said, their traumas, what brings them to Maddie, what brings them together as sisters, what is bringing them together 15 years later. We'll tell you about after Tess talks. Yeah. And it's really, really interesting and so wonderful. And the way you wrote, everybody wrote about their traumas, but their love was so beautiful.
Well, that is the rub in life, right? Aw.
Tissues. You needed tissues. Yeah, you needed tissues. I call it hashtag tissue book.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, they were all hashtag tissue books for sure. Just wonderful. So that had to be. I also liked her name.
Thank you.
Stevie. I liked the name Stevie. I liked all the other names, but I really loved Stevie. I thought that was a really cool name for her character.
Thanks.
I felt it was a very strong name for like who she had to be.
Thanks. Yeah, I felt that too.
Yeah. So, okay. So then Tess comes out last, which is called Christmas Rings.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that cover because it was like grayish or silver.
Silver.
Yeah, silver. It looked gray on my Kindle. Must be old, I guess. But anyway, it's a beautiful. They're all beautiful covers. You'll see. But that was one of my favorite covers, just because I felt it was very antiquish looking to me. So, all right. So we meet yet another character, and she's kind of like she wraps everything together for us. Like the books with the bows. Right? So did you all know the order you were going to tell the stories in?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
we kind of like picked whose books were going to go first before the stories were written.
Okay. All right, Tess. So lead us off into the sunset with the rest.
Yes. So we meet Alyssa right after her parents have been killed in a car accident. And she's a little different than the other girls in that she's never has to go into the foster system. She's just kind of immediately taken in by Maddie. So she doesn't have the angst and everything that they do, the distrust of people, because she kind of had this idyllic family and everything, but she's definitely grieving and kind of in shock and everything. So when you meet her 15 years later, she has become a kindergarten teacher, and she has to pay off these student loans by doing cocktail waitressing at a gentleman's club. And so that's her big secret that she has not told her sisters or her mom because she feels ashamed about it. It's not like she's stripping or anything, but she's there, and there's girls who do that and everything. But anyway, she meets her love interest there. He's a rich mogul type of guy. His family owns a vodka company. So anyway, basically with
He has a cool name too.
Yeah. With my story, it was a little challenging because I really couldn't explain what happened with the called off wedding without going back and really going through their whole relationship and kind of how they met and the conflicts that came their way through his family. So a lot of my book is set in Seattle, and then when the wedding's called off and they all meet in at the lodge, then of course she's in their time. But so that's made my book a little different. And I was worried that would bother people, but it doesn't seem to have come up in the reviews. So that's good. But
Well, no, I think your book wrapped everything up like perfectly,
I agree.
Yeah, your book wrapped it up perfectly. So I think it was awesome.
Yeah. And it was challenging to be at the end because so much had been described in their books that I didn't, like, some days I just kind of had to skip altogether. So it was it was harder than we thought it was going to be as far as that goes. We've said this before on these interviews, like we didn't really know what we were doing, but it all worked out.
Oh, it worked out beautifully, perfectly. It was wonderful.
We tried very hard not to have spoilers in each book. So like we tried like in Maddie's story not to tell what was happening with the other girls, which was hard because obviously as the mother, she would have been discussing this with them and she would have had reactions to it. And I think Tess had it hardest of all because her story came at the end and there was so much we had already revealed, even though we didn't want to give spoilers for her story, just by the nature of the fact that there's, all these books before hers, a lot had already been established. I think she had the hardest time in trying to like find a unique angle for telling her story without having the reader already know everything that happened. So hats off to Tess.
Well, it was amazing. So Tess, you can always do the last. You can always write the last story. Okay, in these, because it was fabulous. It was absolutely fabulous, and it was worth the wait. You know, like to get to the end, you wrapped it up well. So let's tell everybody. So 15 years later, they're all coming together at the Cedar Mountain Lodge because there's gonna be a wedding.
Well, yeah.
So let's tell whoever wants to talk about what happens. We're not going to tell what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. So the wedding gets called off.
Yeah, that's what we're telling. So the wedding.
Yeah. And the sisters and the mom are, very distraught and worried about their little Alyssa. And they don't know what happened really. And that isn't revealed till my book.
Yeah. So you don't know. You literally feel like one of the sisters when you're reading the books.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's happening, and you're like, Meg, like in Little Women, like you just feel like one of the sisters because you're waiting to hear the gossip. You're waiting to hear, and that's like part of the beauty of it as well. But there's also like this. Right from the beginning, there's this beautiful Christmassy, warm vibe to it as well that I really fell in love with. And not every Christmas story can grab that. Or they sound just like every other Christmas story. And these did not. And that's
Yay.
did not. And that's what I loved about them. I've already said they were the best Christmas books to get. Yeah, the best. Yeah. So that's why I was so happy that y'all would come on and do an interview with us, because I highly regarded your books, your sets, and I just think that they're a valuable to read yourself and gift to girlfriends. I just think that they're absolutely beautiful. Do you think we'll get another book out of you guys as a set or no?
It is too early to tell.
Well, I mean, you never know. I guess that's true. Now, how long did it take you to write it then? If you were in December, how long would it take you to get it to press, I guess?
Well, I think that we worked pretty consistently and pretty hard all year, and most of us put out a couple books a year. So that I think was a bit eye-opening for us to then add this into what else we were doing. But your comment where you said you felt like one of the sisters, that's definitely, I think, I see Tammy nodding her head. We all kind of felt like that ourselves too. And that's a really wonderful compliment. And there's things that you try to do when you're writing a book, but you never have any idea if you're going to succeed at them or not. And we all mentioned at different times that it was so nice to write a light, happy, not that there aren't really hard things, as you've discussed and so nicely shared about our plots. Like, they meet in really hard circumstances, but the books are ultimately about the things in life that are good, that are powerful, and that raise us up even after really hard times. And so many different readers like yourself said, oh, it was the right time of year for these books. This was the year I needed these books. So thank you very much. Like, we appreciate that.
It's also wonderful when you read books and you and your friends talk about it.
Yeah.
That's when you know you've read really great books. Okay. When you find yourself going, oh, did you read Christmas Kisses? Oh, yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, we gotta wait till Thursday. Yeah, Thursday. Like it was like
awesome.
This craziness inside of you that just, you guys are all author beasts. Oh my God. See?
That's Barb.
Barbara needs to jump on. Barbara, you need to get a group together now. Do the same thing, right? I mean, that would be funny. I interviewed her when I was doing my interviews in writing in like 2015.
Wow.
It was pretty funny. But anyway, so what has been the most exciting thing since you've released the books?
Probably the reaction from the readers has been, we were, you never know if something will resonate, just because we loved them all. We weren't sure that other people were. It's been pretty special. And like, just to hear that people want another set of them has been really rewarding. So, and we did work really hard on these. So it's been pretty great.
I can imagine. That's wonderful. And can we see your shirts? Look at those shirts, y'all. I think we need to force them to make sets so we could buy them. I think they are so cute. They are so cute.
They're really comfy too, actually. Like they're a nice material. Yeah.
That's so cool. I mean, my dog rescue makes shirts, and you don't pay a dime. People order them themselves.
I've got one.
I can totally do it for you. Nola, you need to read these books. You would totally love them.
And I'm looking forward to having some time off of teaching to do that. I've been knee deep in projects, and it's like, there's so many other things I want to read. I don't want to read these projects anymore. I love my students, but 170 essays and 170 projects is not what I want to be reading right now. I would much rather be reading about these fabulous sisters and these great stories. I do have a question for you, though. I actually have a couple. One, coming kind of late into this, how did you guys all find each other? Like, how did you come together as a group to do this?
Well, this really awesome author, you may have heard of her. She's not only a really incredibly talented storyteller, she's a super and wonderful writer. She's a super person. Her name is Tess Thompson, and she is lovely. And I come all the way from a tiny town in northern British Columbia, Canada, and I made my way all the way. Is quite a trek to Florida, let me tell you, from where I live. And I was by myself, and it was my first time going to a conference there called Mink. And I'm an introvert, but I'm a social introvert, so I don't mind traveling on my own. I kind of like it. And But at the same time, you walk into a large conference, you don't know anybody, or the people that you do know, it's only through online contact like this. And all of a sudden, this really sweet person was like, you write romance, right? Contemporary romance and women's fiction. I'm like, yes, I'm having a little thing in my hotel room. You should come. And so she basically just did an open invitation to anybody writing contemporary romance or women's fiction.
And it quickly was not a little thing. It was like her room was packed, shoulder to shoulder, wall to wall.
Yeah. So that was my first introduction to Tess, just this warm-hearted, inclusive, very much soul sistery person. And so that was nice. And we just really clicked. And I think that that's kind of what happened, is that the five, you meet a bunch of people and you really like them. But then in the course of that weekend, we just kind of kept bumping into each other. And apparently then writing a series seemed like the natural culmination for us to get together. We should definitely do this. Yeah. So anyway, thank you, Tess.
Yeah. That's awesome. So as you're writing, and I know these books were coming out very quickly, how much were you sharing with each other as you were writing? I know you weren't giving away spoilers in the individual characters' books, but the basic thread of the family of the story had to exist. So how are you making sure that everybody is kind of on the same page with these characters as they're writing their own individual perspective of this story?
Well, each of us shared our drafts with each other. So we read, like, as we were going, we read, prologue drafts. We had been given, each of us wrote a backstory before we even started so that we knew who the characters were. And then as we were reading the drafts, in a former part of my life was a wedding planner, and I'm a little tiny bit OCD about details. So I created this mammoth color-coded spreadsheet that had, like, every time every character was on the page, what the weather was, what the locations were, who was with who, and kind of match that up so that as each one of us did a first draft, then we could compare them all and see that, like, oh, okay, well, I'm snow skiing in the sun while Tammy's got her character in a blizzard. We may want to check the weather that day. Or if Stevie was having dinner with Joe at the same time that Haley had Stevie in her room talking, then, we had to kind of fix things like that. So we worked with things like that through the drafts, but we also were very purposeful in making sure in each draft like I wrote Maddie. So in all of the books, anytime Maddie was involved in a conversation or talking, then I would read Maddie's dialogue and make sure that it was something that was true to Maddie. It was something the way that Maddie would say it or the way that she would react. And the same thing with all the other characters. So one of those, we talked about the compliments earlier that we really like to get. And we really love whenever we hear that the books are seamless and that it's, you know, kind of seems like it flows right through. That was very purposeful because we made sure that when Haley was in each book, Haley was Haley, that there wasn't like some other author's take on Haley in that book, that was actually Haley's voice and that was actually how Haley would react. And it's another reason that you see all of our names on each of the covers, because we literally, even though there's a main author whose main character, that's her story, if another character was mentioned, then we all put in feedback to make sure that was correct, which was a much bigger undertaking than we realized it was going to be, because anytime you write a scene with the other characters, you now have to consider what their character is doing in the story at the same time and where their character is supposed to be and how their character reacts is going to kind of, you know, feed where your story goes. So it was very interesting.
Cool. That's so cool. I love that. Yeah. That's amazing.
Well, and Judy can't talk right now, so
No.
She was hugely instrumental in a lot of the setting details. She's familiar with the area. Her husband is a hoteler from, like, that was his career. He worked in big fancy resorts and lodges and stuff. And so she gave us a lot of help and insight that way too. So that was really awesome.
And because she went first, she could kind of like describe everything, and then we could all go, "Oh, okay, that's what it looks like," and then just keep going.
Yeah, it was really cool though, because just little things gelled. Like I felt when I walked into the big front open area at the lodge, I'm like, it just felt the same in every book, and it was awesome. Like, so was that sort of hard to describe kind of kismet creative energy that just kind of takes on a life of its own too.
But you all made us, and I say us because I've discussed these books with other people, you've all made us feel the same when we walked into the entrance. And when we went into rooms, or when we were walking up into the front door, like getting out of the car. I'm like, our car. I felt like a character. Oh my God.
I love it.
Annie's just in the books now. You gotta add a next book and name it Annie.
I tell everybody.
Cousin. You could be the cousin Annie.
Oh my God. No, I tell everybody. I mean, I'm a method reader. So when I read, I get, now this is if the books are good, really good. I get really into, I choose one of the characters and I like become one.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I walk my way through the book.
Right.
And like Nola Nash, like I will stand up and start, she has like a horror book, you know. So like I get really into books.
She scared her dogs. She was reading
my
book out
dogs
loud.
reading Nola's books. They were like,
Sorry, I didn't mean to scare the dogs.
She released the book in October as well. Nola did. So I wanted to let you guys know, somebody says, Michelle Ann Waite says that you guys should have like a cruise.
Yes, we should.
COVID stuff is over. And like Soul Sister Cruise. And like there could be like such cool games or such cool events going on for like before the holidays. I think that would be so cool.
It's like very cool. We could like do all of the events. We could do all the crafting events that they did in the lodge and kind of have, you know,
totally.
Some ships have ice skating. We could do
I already
everything.
know Violet is amazing at karaoke, so she's got the karaoke night covered.
And Tess. I got Tess on the karaoke stage with me last year, so.
I love it. Michelle Ann Waite said this, and we could all buy T-shirts at that point.
Right?
Like I'm obsessed now. But yeah, I mean, I totally think that the cruise ship idea is a lot of fun. You know, authors do that, and you know, musicians do that, and that would be really cool with y'all to do that. People be running to you like, it's the Soul Sisters, you know.
I actually did.
You gotta totally work this merch angle, though. I mean, you could have coffee mugs with this on there.
We could have like the cruise ship instead of the pickup truck.
Yeah.
With like a big Christmas tree on the back of the cruise ship.
Oh yeah,
you could totally work this merch angle.
You could totally get an ornament with the red truck with the tree in the back. I mean, I'm doing, just so you know, I'm doing a Black Friday sale at on my page, The Right Review. And like authors are going to do like sell their books with like a little extra like thing that they're selling. It's, you know, and I'm selling books. There's no giveaways.
Yeah,
I'm selling the books for the authors. I'm having Black Friday weekend. So if you guys do,
All right. On.
so we'll add your books to it. That would be fun. So anyway, this I could talk forever with you guys because this has just been so much fun. So what is one thing that y'all are doing very special for the holidays? I don't need to hear, oh, because of COVID, I can't do it. It's ruined.
Just something fun.
Yeah, I just want to hear about the good stuff. Or one good thing you're doing, even if you're alone. There's got to be some goodness in everything. And I prefer to talk about that.
My birthday is the day after Thanksgiving, so I'm celebrating that entire weekend. Actually, I celebrate the entire month. Who are we kidding? But yeah, I'm celebrating that entire weekend.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Happy early birthday.
Thanks.
Happy birthday.
I have a December birthday too, so that's always a crazy time of year. My whole family has December birthdays, so it's crazy, but we'll have fun.
That's awesome. My birthday's December 5th.
Oh, cool. Happy early birthday.
Happy birthday.
So I'm having oh my God, I'm still alive party at my at the page.
So we'll have 2 Christmas trees this year, maybe 3.
I love it.
I'm like, yeah, I'm going to just decorate my house. I always like to decorate anyways, but I'm like, I'm going to have my own library Christmas tree that's just fine and decorated how I want it.
I love that.
I love it.
Yeah, and my daughter, which I was very shocked, but I'm so excited. She is going to dress up her little boys, and her husband and them are going to. This is because of COVID, but it's a good thing. They're going to go.
I'm just saying
they're going to go caroling, like in an old-fashioned way, where they'll go up to people's doors and knock.
Oh, that's so sweet! I love that.
So I thought that, like, it just made me happy to even think about it. And she has like little, like, old-fashioned, like, wool coats. Like, they're gonna look so cute.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's awesome.
That's so cute.
I love that. I love that.
I'm excited,
Something good always comes out of.
That's right. That forces you to like do things in a new way, right? So
Yes.
It's always good if you look for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we are going all out on the decorating too. And I would, as Ev mentioned, I do like to throw parties, and this is going to be my 2nd annual author party, like anybody who lives in the area, and of course can't do it, but we're going to decorate like people are coming over, and we have multiple trees, and all my daughters love to decorate, so it'll be crazy.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. I love all these people putting up their Christmas trees like at Halloween and stuff. That's so cool.
Me too. I love it. Yeah. So Judy, do yes and no's for you. Are you going to do something special for Christmas this year? Thumbs up. If you're going to do something special. Yes.
Her grandkids live there.
Great. She's going to break right after this video ends.
Are you going to decorate?
You have a tree?
Is your husband going to cook?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Are you going to write us a book? I knew it. That's awesome.
Well, Judy.
I'm going to say my goodbye. I really thank you, not leave, but thank you so much for being here for this interview. It means so much to me. Meeting, especially the ladies that I haven't met yet. If this was a hotel room, I would hope that you would consider me a soul sister.
Absolutely. You would totally be invited to Tess's next hotel room party.
I hope so. I would love to break into that sorority. That would be a lot of fun. So,
Annie, you want me to show the covers of the books for the people?
Oh yeah, that's what I'm just saying. Go ahead. Thank you.
Here we go. Aren't they gorgeous?
Thank you.
They're
They
so
are
beautiful.
so pretty. I love them. They all have they're so similar and they look like this gorgeous set of books, and yet they all have some little something that's different about them. That's just awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
What was you had 2 graphics, right? Because I like the other one too.
I had our Soul Sisters Holiday special graphic,
that's
so
really
be on the
pretty.
lookout for this one. This is our thumbnail that will be on, it's on my YouTube channel. We're live on YouTube, and then when I post it on my YouTube channel, Nola Nash Entertainment is where this will live. So if you didn't get a chance to watch the whole thing live, you can always go there and look for that thumbnail, and you'll be able to find it on my channel.
Thank you, Nola. Yeah, they're really
Very
pretty.
nice.
It's graphic.
I have a graphics addiction. It's a well-known thing that I suffer from.
You're supposed to be writing your next book, so you're like, I'll just do
Yeah,
Or
I have fallen.
I'll say, Nola, I'm having trouble with the graphic. She's like, I'm writing
I'll do
that.
it.
Cool.
I'll do it. I'll make it. I'm
So now
busy
we all know
making.
who to call.
Always
Well, I'm
Nola.
making graphics for Annie. I've made book trailers for Laura Kemp, for me and Laura Kemp and different people. And I had my promo videos for the second line that I've done. I made one for Annie. It's like, I should be writing books, but I can find more to do on Canva, iMovie, and BookBrush than anyone else in the world. And I could just live in there. I'm sorry, I can't grade your projects or write this book. I must make a graphic. I'm sorry. I have to.
Instead of grades, you could just hand out a beautiful graphic to each
Yeah. Here you go. You did this beautiful thing. This is what you mean.
the big Starburst.
Yes. Congratulations. You passed 8th grade first semester. Go for it. Yeah, I have a horrible addiction to graphics. So it's my favorite thing to do is to go on, explore Canva and see what I can make it do for me and then see what I can make BookBrush do for me. I'll make something in BookBrush and then I save it to my computer. I go load it into Canva and then I do other things with it. And then I put it into an iMovie book trailer. It's like I'm layering my graphic systems. I really am in the wrong line of work.
That's interesting.
It's great stuff.
I don't know. I'll have to.
BookBrush is where you get to put the 3D, like the cover of your book, like on like a book that looks like it's 3D, or it's like in the iPad and has your book cover in it. That's that program is BookBrush, and that's how you get all that stuff. But also, I'll do something like that with it, and then I go do some other stuff that I know Canva will do that BookBrush won't, and it's like I'm really buried neck deep in this. It's seriously an addiction. There's got to be a support group somewhere.
We'll all meet here. All right, ladies. Well, thank you so much. And on the Right Review, I'm going to post all of the links. Anybody that's paying attention, that's not paying attention, that's watching. What am I doing?
Pay attention.
I'm sorry. But I'll put all of the links where you can, you can pick up the books right now. You can read them tonight, and we'll be in touch maybe next year for the second series. All right.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Have a lovely night. Good night.
Good night, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.